We started with up to 10 to 50 deliveries per day. And then now, like, we're just doing over 9,000 deliveries. And like, let's say on a daily basis, we don't just raise money to raise money. We just raised what we needed to take us to the point to validate our model, to reach a product market fit. And that's what we did. Now we have like over 13 office presences, and then the footprints is over 43 countries globally.
You're the founder of Yobante Express, short yes. Could you maybe quickly explain so we have context for the entire conversation? What is it that you exactly do?
Basically, Yobante Express is the digital platform that's solving one of the biggest problems in emerging markets, domestic, cross-border, and last-mile delivery. So delivering packages in Africa or extended to emerging markets could be like a very complicated process. And the parcels are often lost with no accountability and no trackability. To solve that, we built a web and mobile platform that leverage on machine learning to provide a delivery at up to 40% cheaper and twice as fast than existing solutions. We're providing services for businesses, mainly e-commerce, social sellers, and any business with logistics and extended to last mile delivery needs, as well as servicing to individuals. So from point to point until the last mile delivery.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I personally can completely relate because when I was in high school, I actually lived in Cameroon with my dad for 6 months. And there I tried to order a book of Amazon and it said like, it takes 3 months to arrive. I obviously didn't order it then. I read other books, but I think it's a super interesting space and a very valid problem that you're solving, right? And from the realization that you have to build that business to Startup Bootcamp, and I saw your pitch actually, very impressing for being 1 year old. What happened then? Like, how did you think about building it out, getting the first customer, securing the first relay points, maybe also doing the first bit of marketing? Like, how was that process like?
I'm like that process was not really easy. First of all, the program was very selective. Like we was over 3,000 applicants, very interesting startups across the continent, like English speaking and French speaking startups across different countries and markets in Africa. So the first of all, being selected as one of the top 10 companies or top 10 startups was like one of the first wins. And then when we took part of the program that happened in Cape Town, South Africa, we learned a lot from our ERRs networks, from the mentors, and we kind of created like significant relationships that we still till this day use, and we used to kind of scale and build the Yobante Express solution and scaled across Africa, Southeast Asia, now in Europe as well. So we're providing now logistics services even for major e-commerce players. So we just signed with a major e-commerce player like few months ago, and we're about to kick off the operations with them at the beginning of next month. That's going to be huge. We did not announce it with the name, but it's one of the top like three global e-commerce players that we have onboarded that I'm excited to announce. Like that. But it was not really easy at the very first. Mainly as a founder, we are more focused on the operation, on how to get things going in a certain way. But running operations from a different city, like that was not easy. That was like before all this trend of remote working and all of that. So that was even before the COVID, right?
Yeah.
So it was not easy, but I was lucky to count on my co-founder, as I'm very used to say, like every Jordan needs its rodman, right? So
Yeah.
the Badra Baji was like the rodman while I was in Cape Town with the program and running POCs, and as well as running like market testing in different other markets and pilots. He was kind of getting things going and improving our solutions, our product across in our services across Senegal.
How did the financing work? Like prior to Startup Bootcamp, I assume you bootstrapped and funded it yourself. And then I think you came into Startup Bootcamp already with 50K MRR, right? Like 50K monthly revenue. And then you raised your first round, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. So we bootstrapped with the little income and all the kind of assets that we had from the previous startups, the nano air startup, and my
Yep.
co-founder as well. I mean, like from his own incomes, and then we joined forces to build and to get the business going, to pay salaries, to pay like the marketing and the first what we're calling build the first brand presence across Senegal and to
Mhm.
get things going. And then we had some initial cash also from Startup Bootcamp at some point, while we joined the program. That was around K. And then with all that money, we kept bootstrapping. And then we kind of leverage on the skills that we had in place. So technical and marketing and legal, and as well as the operational team that we had built for about a year at that time, right?
Mm.
It was first bootstrapping, and then we raised our first seed round. I mean, like, we was like a totally and 100% safe, like the first safe at 2.5 million, let's say, valuation. So it was around the safe and the bridge counted for up to 1.8 million. And in total, we have raised for the seed round at around 2 million US dollars. That might be like a very small amount compared to what you're hearing around with similar startups. It's because Yobante has been what we're calling very capital efficient. So we don't just
Yep.
raise money to raise money. We just raised what we needed to take us to the point to validate our model, to reach a product market fit. And that's what we did. And then we replicated, we build something in Senegal, we reach a profitability at up to 3 to 4 years maximum. And then
Mhm.
in the same time, we launch mature different other pilots across different countries. Now we have like over 13 office presences, and then the footprints is over 43 countries globally. And then we're providing logistics services for up to 10,000 business clients and social sellers globally, right? So that's just we have been able to do that by let's say applying like a very simple playbook, like learning from the experience in Senegal, and then improving that and contextualizing that by the pilots that we have been running in a different other markets so that we could reach critical mass and iterate. So that's what we have been doing. And
Yep.
then we had validated that in Africa. So we took also another bold move to replicate that, let's say across different other countries, like in and out, connecting the African diaspora, like allowing them to deliver from and, towards Africa, right? But
Yep.
also replicating the same model and testing it now in Vietnam, where not only we're not focused on the cross-border segment, but the domestic. That's the first time ever that we have been testing the Yobante Express model outside of the home continent.
Mm. And how from early days, I remember that you said in I think another post that like the first 5K you spent on ads, right? You didn't get a single conversion. Like, how did you learn from that, and how did you build a playback from all those also failed experiments at the beginning to now be able to scale to different markets that quickly?
The first advertising campaigns that we ran while we was in South Africa, I mean, like we was targeting spaza shop owners, right? But we had like a whole network of, bunch network of ERRs and marketing experts and all of that assisting us on different points and all that on the strategy, right? But
Yeah.
we had a great creative, the content was great and everything, but we failed. Afterwards, we realized that the problem was not actually on the creative. It was simply on understanding what we're calling the customers, and then the buyers, personas, right? That was critical because the local context was plaza shop owners in South Africa that we was targeting in English, since that's the official language, that's the most spoken language there, right? And we didn't took into accountability the fact that those plaza shop owners actually there was not mainly South Africans, and they don't use English or any other South African language as their let's say Facebook, I mean like language. So we was missing the whole targets because of that. And then once we understood the problem, we adjusted that. And then on the first campaigns, we onboarded the first, up to 150 sponsorships that helped us build and validate the model. And we have learned, we have different stories like that where, and then now it's a part of the Yobante Express culture. Every time that we're scaling or testing a new market, we're calling it, we need to do the customer discoveries or like the suppliers discoveries. When I mean, suppliers, I mean like by hub agents and as well as, independent casual carrier that are like the two key part of the Yobante Express ES infrastructure.
Okay, so like at the beginning, you learned how important at the end local context is, right? And really understanding, even if you deliver the exactly same product, and it's like, but just the fact that it's a different market, you have to like contextualize your ads, you have to contextualize the creators, and also change the language in the targeting.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really important to put it at the core of your strategy. So it's not something that you will put like afterwards. It's something that you need to kind of incorporate in your strategy at day one. If not, you will lose money. And then as a startup, the money or the financial resources, I mean, like, actually, they're not like one of your strength because you have like very limited resources. And since you're bootstrapping and all of that, you gotta be really cautious on the cash flow, on the cash.
Yeah, totally. And then you launch in Senegal and you launch in South Africa. What was the decision after you were present in that market and you grew and you had better KPIs? What was the decision like where to expand next?
Yeah, so after like we validated the market, the home market, Senegal, and then I think it was like an opportunity met with the strategy, right? The
Mhm.
opportunity was being part of the Startup Bootcamp program while having the opportunity to be based in Cape Town and running the business, right? That was the opportunity. And then the strategy on that was, look, we're coming from a francophone market. And then we have seen that South Africa, Cape Town, has a lot of infrastructure. Like at the very first view of it, was not thinking even our solution might be working, leveraging on independent casual carriers and providing a delivery service. Of course, there's, using what we call excess of capacity, right? Since
Mhm.
Cape Town had, basically everything around great infrastructure, better than anywhere else in Africa that could be compared as with any other European or American city, right?
Yeah.
So, but when we did those discoveries and after we learned from different things and all that, we realized now that the behavior of like leveraging on travelers' excessive capacity has already been, something that South African was already doing without trackability, accountability, just as what we had at the home market, Senegal. And then we
Yeah.
had to test that out in order to confirm those assumptions, right? But the whole idea of after the opportunity was not only we launched in South Africa at that time, but also in Nigeria and Ghana. There was like the first like simultaneous pilots that we out myself was like the global launcher. I mean, like
Mhm.
the yes global launcher at that time, so that we could validate while we, the new like the Yobante Express model. I mean, like is something that have the potential to be global, but we needed to test that. And then the challenge for us was like if we're able to validate the model in other countries that has different language, as in Senegal is a French speaking country, right? What we're
Yeah.
calling the language barrier, right? And then different, let's say cultures and all of that, if we manage to validate our model, and then since we knew also like building the infrastructure is not just for the domestic and the last mile, that there is also the opportunity that the cross-border segment or the country-to-country segment represented in terms of the shipment, right? As you could see, like legacy players across Africa do not actually provide a country-to-the-country service. Even if they does, it's very limited. All the packages need to go to Europe or Asia before returning back to Africa. So that's
Mm.
why like those shipments are very and highly expensive, right?
I mean, makes perfect sense. And also, what you said that you're launching small pilots first to test, and I assume gather data quickly to then, with that data, make an informed decision to see if you really invest heavily or if it's maybe like just an experiment where you learned, right?
That's the whole thing. The whole thing, to kind of give you like a very short answer, is to test, learn, and iterate. We always do that. We test with the pilots, and if there are adjustments to be made, if there are like some change to be made on the model and all that, readapting the model, tropicalizing what I said like earlier, based on the local context, and then once we validate the assumptions and all of that, then we go for critical mass in that country. We build, we replicate the same thing that we have. The maturity of Senegalese market has taught us to understand, like which numbers we should be looking at, which targets we should be looking at, and which type of clients and, of course, like partner segmentations we should be looking at, right? And then the local context understanding will help us like adjust to that strategy for it to fit in a like the local market context.
Okay. And then you started in Senegal, you went to South Africa, you expanded to multiple markets in Africa, and then you're like, wait a minute, let me launch in Vietnam. Like how does that come to be? Like how do you go from Africa to Southeast Asia? Because most of the times, right, like especially in the fintech domain, African companies, they go from Africa and they go to Europe, right? But you go from like Africa to Southeast Asia. How is that thought process like?
I mean, like first we was already servicing Europe, but not to the domestic segment, because like in Europe, as you already know, they're like very efficient solution to provide delivery services in any European city. I mean, like for cheap and fast, right? So there was
Yeah.
not such a problem. The only segment related to Africa was like to kind of provide a logistic service through the cross border, like from Africa towards Europe or from Europe toward Africa. We have
Hmm.
already been doing that before the Vietnamese pilot, right? But
Okay.
not doing the domestic segment outside of the home continent, just as you said, Africa. So the basically what we kind of was looking at was like the importance of Southeast Asia region in global trade. And as you know,
Mm.
there's significant, I mean, like, trade that has been happening for over a decade now between like Southeast Asia, Europe, Southeast Asia, America, and Southeast Asia in Africa, into the clothing, the textile, and all that. Matter of fact, you could see all those major brands like Nike and all of that, they have relocated their factories to Vietnam and other places, right?
Hmm.
So there's significant. And we saw the route like coming from the niche market that we have, like the e-commerce and social sellers that are
Hmm.
kind of pretty much getting their products sourced from Dubai or China or other places in Southeast Asia. And as you
Mm.
know, some social sellers might use Vietnam and other places as like what we call it a proxy to China, so that it could be more affordable on certain aspect related to the importation taxes and all of that, right? So we saw that, with the actual operation and the services we was doing for those type of clients that are doing drop shipping and all of that, where we handle the last mile delivery for them in the home market or in the home continent Africa, right? And then
Hmm.
we wanted to kind of capture those market shares, because that was not possible at that time, since it was not providing the freight forwarding or like the cross-border segment from those sold markets to Africa, right? And
Hmm.
then we saw that opportunity, and then when we started that, shaping it, doing our first discoveries and all that, we realized that, wait a minute, there's some like similarities that we observed coming on the ground between like the aspect of the domestic segment. We saw that in Southeast Asia as well, they have a lot of things in common with Africa, the domestic level, right? You could see like pretty much a lot of motorbikes doing deliveries and a lot of other various type of vehicles doing deliveries, right? And then
Yeah.
we understood that there is an opportunity here, and the solutions that exist not only do not solve, I mean, like the affordability problem, but mainly at the peak hours in Vietnam or even in the afternoons and all that, it's raining a lot. There's no such as a service as the express delivery. What you have, it's more like, like or tailored logistic service that's
Mm.
overnight, or something that's more on let's say the minute delivery, and you could get delivery in 20 minutes, but there's no such a thing as like getting an express delivery at any time in a day.
Yeah. No, I mean, congrats to you. Like, I tip my hat to you, like that you were able to also now launch that pilot in Vietnam. And another topic I wanted to touch, obviously, you as the CEO and founder, like, how do you think about building teams in different markets and managing them? Because I think earlier you said like you need your Rodman to the Jordan, right? And how do you think about team building?
I mean, like team building is always complicated. It's not easy at the first try. So, what we have been always doing is when we're testing and piloting in new markets, we could do it with two different approaches, right? The first approach might be to be like very asset light, leveraging on the more experienced HQ experience to test and to build the first points, the first relay points. I mean, like that could allow us to have at least a market entry, right? And then if we
And
reach it
that
with,
goes from the HQ, the people that have done it in multiple markets, they are doing the initial test.
yeah, exactly, exactly, yeah. So
Mhm.
that will be doing the initial test, right? But sometime like that, this is the one of the ways. Like I remember, I said two ways of doing it, right?
Yep.
The second way that we're doing it is like building a minimum, I mean, like local team with always like two or one to two country directors and a
Mhm.
country lead that will be the head of operations. I mean, like for that particular market, and then having like two to three additional sales that will be the support, the local support sales team, and then
Mhm.
backing it with the HQ team and myself as the the global launcher, the interim global launcher for now. But by next year that will change. So I will, because for me it's very important for the founder to kind of, let's say, transfer the culture of the startup, especially at the early days. It's very important. A
Yeah.
lot of founders are missing that. If you don't put your hands, I mean, like on the mud, so that you could kind of teach the team, the culture, the values of the startups at the early age. I mean, like you might be having lot of different challenges that might be like a direct result of the lack of understanding of the startup culture.
Okay. And to this day, like for example, if you look at like successful franchise models, right? Like a lot of times marketing is centralized in HQ and then you obviously have like operational teams and country leads in the market. Is that a similar structure that you follow or do you build out every department in the local markets?
So actually, we kind of have like the sort of the franchise, the model. I mean, like most of the time, what we do is like the everything that's related to the local context will be handled by the local team, but the
Mhm.
support, the HQ support services and team will always back them up to help them solve the let's say the global aspect of the problems, but also the key aspect of the model, so that the local team will not be overwhelmed with the service, the request, or every other aspect of the business,
Mhm.
while they will focus on building the local infrastructure, servicing the local clients.
Okay. Just a quick question out of curiosity. Do you love sports and how do you think sports correlates or compares to business?
I think sports is something that's really necessary for every human being. Like as I'm always saying, a healthy body and a healthy spirit. I'm exercising, going to the gym, doing different other various sports like surfing, overboard surfing, flyboard surfing, as well as let's say badminton and pickleball and different other things and different other sports. But I think like sports has like a very interesting role for any, I mean, like individual, any founder, particularly when you have different, I mean, like tasks to do over the, let's say over the week. So
Yeah.
if you don't have like let's say like a very sporty spirit, it's going to be really hard and you might be having or facing some serious challenges. And in similar also, we're applying same, let's say, branding strategy than major brands are doing, such as in US, for instance, you have like every team that has its mascot and all of that. So we're replicating that like same model in different countries. For instance, in Vietnam, we have Shippo, which is like the rabbit mascot of Yobante Express there. And then
Mm-hmm.
that now we're gonna use like globally as the official Yobante Express mascot. Like even on the team building and the team management, it's very important. And that has been like one of the, I think, key assets that Yobante Express have, since like my co-founder, as I said, is like a FIFA licensed player agent. Like he has managed international carriers of the global transfer for international players like the former Chelsea striker Demba Ba and Suleiman Dukara, Lamin Gassama, and different other players, right?
Wow.
So there's always like this sport mindset, and the sport background, and especially like the management part of the Yobante, we took that playbook. I mean, a significant part of that playbook, of course, from my experience as the founder, none air, but also from the management background experience of my co-founder.
Yeah. No, I mean, I personally, I love sports. I also like, I play basketball, football, tennis all the time. I'm hyper competitive. And I agree. I couldn't agree more. Like there's so much parallels from sports that you can also implement in business. Just the only thing with business is like it's also a game, right? But you can play it indefinitely. You can play it until you're 60, 70 years old, while like professional athletes have to usually retire in their 30s. Okay. And, one thing I wanted to dive into, you already mentioned your seed round.
Yeah,
You raised it, I think, in 221 with like prominent investors, like some of the best in Africa, like Silverback, I think, is on your cap table, right? Launch
yeah,
Africa is on your cap
exactly.
table. How was that process like of raising that round after Startup Bootcamp? And then also we can touch on what's coming now, what we also briefly touched on before the show.
Yeah, so we clearly in total has raised up to 2 million US dollars as a seed round in total, all safe. So yeah, so it was like we have like one of the top investors in the continent. Like there's Silverback Holding, there's Lunch Africa Venture, there's Startup Bootcamp, there's even like over 30 years Visa director, a VP at Unity, like one of the leading game development. I mean, like, let's say VR and game development, let's say companies globally. We
Yeah,
have also like even former prime ministers and as well as really like, let's say higher level, individuals coming from the banking, let's say background for somebody that actually was the KfW director, for a whole region and all of that. Really high level investors, both like venture capital and as well as angel investors that has invested. That also one of the, let's say aspects that was really helpful coming from the, helping us, connecting us and helping us grow the network. And the process was like at the very first, not easy since in Africa, raising funds is not an easy process.
yeah,
But the Startup Bootcamp program gave us like the global stage, exposition, right? But even with an exposition, you got to demonstrate, you got to show the numbers, you got to show traction, you got to have a clear vision, you got to demonstrate, right? And then that also was something that we have learned and then we have improved over the years, and then we have been supported by all those backers that still today support us on that key round. So now with the Series A round, since it's the next level, it's like it's over Series A, but it's not a total B round based on the amount and the valuation here. But we have partnered with the one of the top investment bankers that has already completed almost like the, let's say 90% of the process. And we're closing that like by the first quarter of next year. We'll make the
yeah.
announcement.
And for the Series A/B, because it's pretty big for typical Series A, at least in Africa.
Yeah.
Um, are there Do you have a lead investor already? Can you say the valuation? If not, also completely fine if you're not allowed to say it
So
until the
for
round is
now, we're
closed.
not gonna disclose that, but we have some very decent lead candidates that has shown interest, and
Yeah.
then we might be having like the first confirmation. I mean, like before the holiday season, like before the holiday season of the next month.
Okay, I mean, congrats, wishing you all the best for the close. And what was the decision like to? Because I assume the seed round, also startup bootcamp, that was also always you leading, right, in the fundraising and talking to investors. What was the decision like to now use an investment banker who's done this process at bigger rounds multiple times?
First of all, you gotta know your limits and you gotta understand. I mean, like of course, like exactly in which field you're good at and all that. Of course, I was myself the investment lead in the whole process for the 2 million seed round. I myself conducted the process and lead the teams. I'm like my financial team and all the other teams so that I was like the public and still the public face of the company. But
Yeah,
at some point, you just need to be, let's say, let me say it in a very way that you could picture it more. Like sometimes you just need somebody to play the music while you dance or while you focus on something else, right?
yeah,
So, like as I'm saying, like Batman needs Robin, right? So this way, you could say like you have more professional and let's say investment bankers that has experience on the Series A and B level because even if I managed to close the seed rounds and all that, that was seed rounds is in Series A and Series B. Those are like some different level of like fundraising process and all that, especially the type of investors that the lead investors that are kind of investing. There's are investment teams. There's are like some A grad venture capital investors, right? So
yeah,
having investment bankers will help you like structure your model, structure everything from your data room to everything to be more investor friendly and easily understood. And then the other key elements that make me like took the decision to partner with those investment bankers was actually their understanding of the market, right? It's very important. So, and
yeah.
how to position and how to tell your equity story in a way that those investors might get every single detail of your company and of like of course like the past, the present, and the future. So it's very important for the equity story. And then those investment bankers are really and highly skilled to help you and like tell your equity story so that you have better chance of rapidly closing. Remember, even if we still have like a higher, let's say runway as a company is, and we are very capital efficient.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, having worked myself at both venture capital firms and also startups and hyper growth phases, like fundraising is a process and also a time commitment. And if you can use that time, especially in such a pivotal phase of expansion, to focus on improving the business and making that better and growing, that's super important. I want to conclude with like a quick fire, like a couple questions. You just give me like 1 to 2 sentences of your thoughts, yeah? First question is, if you look back now at the amazing journey you had since 2018, what is one thing that you would change looking back now in hindsight, having all the knowledge?
So I'm saying like there's always a room for improvement. Of course, like if I have to, like fast forward, go backwards, would definitely be, like maybe pivoting sooner. And like
Mhm.
more like at the day one focus on Yobante. I'm not splitting my time between Nano Air and Yobante, but this is just like how it was supposed to be at some point. But the first pivot that I did as a founder was one of the things that I might be doing like sooner than what I did. But it was all experience. It was all like a learning journey. And I still learn till that day. I learned from my advisors, those investors and a lot of, other advisors that are helping me on a daily basis and that are advising me on different aspect of the business. So anytime that I need I have somebody, or like I have two advisors that are already on the cap table. Anytime that I need a trader, I have two or three or one that is available. Anytime that I need that corporate or this introduction, or I have like a rock star, as I used to call them, a rock star advisory. I mean, like team that's helping me on different aspect of the business, and relationships, network, and connection. It's very important for any startup, especially in Africa. A lot of founders in Africa lack like the resources, not only but also the right network to help you take your business to the next level. And I'm really glad and grateful of that network that I have.
Totally. I mean, I agree. Like learning is a lifelong journey that should never stop just because you like finished university or you finished a certain chapter of your life. And last question, who is a person that you look up to, that you maybe model certain aspects of your life on, or that you just learned a lot from?
I mean, like, I'm kind of modeling to different individuals coming from let's say, I loved Kobe Bryant, always Kobe, the Mamba mentality. But also, I have like great mentors and investors such as Ibrahim. Also, like, he's a role model. I mean, like, what he has built and all of that. I have also a lot of other, let's say, founders like Zach, Philip, and all of that. And, even like people from my own team and from the different other teams as well, Henry. And a lot of people that I have been always been, looking after them and seeing like what they have done, personal journeys, and as well as their backgrounds and experiences, learning from different other individuals. And that has been, one of my let's say, chef, like over the years. I'm learning. Remember, like every time, like I have one particular problem on this particular field, I'm glad to know that I have somebody that I could count on, that could reach out, that have like a very specific knowledge and skill
Yeah.
set in that field, that I could, kind of be going and ask help. Like founders, sometimes we think we have figured it out and we have all the answers, but we don't. We don't have the answers. Just what Kanye said to Sway, like we don't you don't have the answers, Sway. So I might be saying like founders don't have always the answers. So we gotta find those answers from those people that we are seeing as role models, and it's always a good thing to kind of have those people available to help you. I mean, like let's say in your journey as a founder.
Yeah, totally. Great answer. I mean, I also love Kobe, and yeah, I think it's a good time to conclude. I mean, Umar, it was a true pleasure talking to you. Like a lot of insights, incredible journey that you already had, and also incredible journey that you have ahead of yourself. A lot of luck on raising the Series A, closing that 30 million round, and yeah, thank you for being on.
Well, you welcome, Louis. Like, let me thank you for your time, and I'm humbled and honored to be here. And actually, it's a real honor.